Well, today's text that Brett read so beautifully starts off with therefore. And when I hear therefore and then a string of, therefore you should be living sacrifices to God, I think, all right, wait a minute. A point has been made, but I feel like it's like that college class right after lunch and there's a big auditorium and then I'm running a little late and the professor says, and that's how we get osmosis. And I had missed the first 15, 20 minutes of how that process works. It's kind of like you're coming in mid-thought. Therefore, well, what is the therefore that Paul is talking about? So last week, we talked a little bit about Jesus and the Canaanite woman who's pleading and begging Jesus to heal her daughter. And Jesus, at first, just kind of gives her the Heisman, and he's ignoring her, and the disciples say, send her away, she's annoying us, she's making us uncomfortable. And she keeps pushing to Jesus to move the barrier of who is reception or eligible for God's compassion, who can be a part of this family of faith. And at first, the answer is just the people of Israel. And then she pushes him and says, yeah, but even the dogs like me get scraps from the table. So that was last week. Paul, just a chapter before today's text, is talking to his Roman church that he's established in Rome. And he's talking to Gentiles, so another word for Gentiles is people who aren't Jewish, Greek, Romans, Egyptians, Spaniards, you name it, that are part of this faith community from different ethnic backgrounds, and traditional Jewish families who have followed the law of Moses, who follow Torah. And so he's saying, hey, the Jewish part of our family tree has ancient roots, and God follows the Torah, follows kosher law, follows circumcision. It's all Greek to the Greeks. The Gentiles, they're not used to all these practices. So how do these different parts, these different people with different backgrounds, different experiences, who have come from different places in life, fit together and be one body? He says the Gentiles have been grafted into this tree, but listen, it doesn't matter if you're slave or free, male or female, Jew or Greek. In the end, because of who God is the glue that brings this whole thing together. Because of the mercy, grace, and love of God that all of us receive, that all of us are invited into, that's what makes us, who may be very different people when we walk through the doors or out of our cars or from different places online in different parts of the world. It is the thing that connects us is this relationship with God and the love of God. Therefore, that's the therefore. So it's this grace, compassion, love of God that unites us, different people, different backgrounds, different cultural experiences, different political beliefs, whatever the therefore is, different colors of our skin, different places of work, etc., etc. You get the point. Brings us together as one body, one reflection, or seek to have one reflection, one message to the world in light and salt. So he says, present yourself as living sacrifices. Now, we might get a little hung up on the word sacrifices. Although I am glad that we're in the pavilion today because we got a grill, right? So if this was our altar, in the ancient world, something's going on that thing, and it's going to get burnt up for the aroma to God and pleasing to God. Some animal is going to get sacrificed, some blood is going to be spilled as an offering to God. Doesn't matter what ancient culture you're in, Babylon, Assyria, ancient Israel, Egypt, there's always going to be a altar of sacrifice. We have vestiges of that in our language when we hear, hymns, the blood of Christ shed for me. That all goes back to the ancient practice of sacrifice, atonement, and this isn't a sermon on that, but that's that connection. And so he's saying living sacrifices. The word in English might be better translated for our context, who aren't sacrificing animals every day as worship. Offering. May your life be an offering to God every day in everything you do. And so as I'm thinking about this, how do we offer ourselves as part of the faith community, as we're talking about Rally Day and getting involved in the community and different ways that people are involved and different gifts they have. And I was thinking about this example of two different men of faith from a book that John Ortberg, former pastor of Saddle, I don't remember the church. It's out in California. But anyway, talks about two guys in this book. When the game is over, it all goes back into the box. And the first person he talks about, a grocery store chain had a big training event. Barbara Glanz, she's a motivational speaker like Matt Foley. Anyway, downstairs in the basement, 5 cups of coffee. No, anyway, she's talking to the employees about how to lift up customers' experience as they're in their grocery store. And each of these employees is listening, and one of them happens to be a 19-year-old boy named John. They call him Johnny, who has some, he was born with Down syndrome, so he has some learning disabilities. And Johnny went home and talked to his dad and said, and was thinking about he's a bagger, how can I help people in the grocery store have a better experience? So he and his dad came up with this idea that he'd have the thought for the day. And so they printed up 50 copies of this inspirational quote, and Johnny resolved that at the end, as each customer came through his aisle, his checkout aisle, he would say, "Thank you so much for shopping at our store. I hope you have a great day, and I'm going to put a thought for the day," and he puts it in their last bag. And so that was Johnny's way of using whatever gifts or skills or moment in the grocery store as a bagger that he could. A month later, Barbara Glanz gets a call from the manager of the store, the grocery store chain, and she says, "You're never going to guess what's happened. Our store has really been transformed in a lot of ways." I went out from my office, and there were 3 lines that were open with cashiers, and one of the lines was backed up to the frozen food aisle. So immediately I called another cashier up, and then I went to the guest and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You can get in aisle 4 or aisle 10 over here are open." And they're like, No, it's okay. We're here to be in Johnny's aisle because we want to get the thought for the day." And she said, and people were leaving after their groceries, but being touched by this young man and his generous thought for the day and his kindness. And then the floral department got into it. And they started taking corsages that went unclaimed or unused that were going to be thrown out, or flowers that were slightly broken. And so the floral department decided, we're going to take these flowers and we're going to give them to elderly women, little girls, single moms that look like they've had a heck of a day. And would you like a flower? And pay them a compliment, pin a corsage on them if they'd like. And the atmosphere, almost competitiveness of the different parts and different departments of how we could cheer people up, do something positive in their daily routines, has really created a different atmosphere in our store. Somebody who's taken this idea of living offering, of carrying their faith, their life, their love, their compassion for other people, and letting it touch others in a way that sounds really simple, but people were lining up to receive it. Then he tells a story right alongside of it about Armand Hammer, who is, as many of you may have known from history, Occidental oil tycoon, multi-$100 millionaire, hundreds and hundreds of millions, very successful. USA Today called him a confidant of world leaders and a shaper of industry, as one of the people that they headlined. But after he died in his early 90s, a memoir came out, and it was discovered that Armand Hammer had had really corrosive relationships with almost anybody who he knew. He neglected his son. He had a daughter from an affair who he never acknowledged, never visited, ever. When his brother died, and his brother's estate went up was going to be divided by his will. It was a $700,000 estate. Hammer filed a lawsuit against the rest of his brother's family, challenged the will, got $667,000 of the $700,000. though his brother's wife, whom his brother had visited every day, was an invalid in a nursing home, and 4 of his children were struggling to make ends meet. Victor, his brother, had intended for all them to be cared for, but Hammer had come in and taken it for himself. In the end, at his memorial, none of his family were there. His pallbearers were his chauffeur, his nurse, and other hired caregivers. Fellow employees of his company said he treated peers like errand boys and would hire people in vindictive ways of personal vendetta and made everybody in the company feel this big. After his legacy, Occidental Petroleum actually removed him from the history of their company. 2 different men, different ages, different sizes and shapes. One who the world would say was ultra successful, famous, powerful, wealthy. He won at so many things in life. And yet, I think this 19-year-old bagger was a lot richer in the eyes of God, in the eyes of relationships, and things that really mattered, that were eternal. Gifts. You've got a gift. No, I don't. Yes, you do. De Niro and Billy Crystal, and analyze this. I don't know about you, but a lot of times growing up and in life, I don't think I have very many gifts to offer. There's a lot of times when you might think that somebody else prays better, somebody else is more athletic, somebody else is more intelligent, somebody else is better with finances. And Paul is saying, hey, it takes the whole village. It takes everybody. It takes every part of this body to make what God intends for a healthy, functioning community of faith. And so I think about our own congregation. I think about the organizational skills of the garage sale ladies, Gail Clark, and the encouragement of a Jan Hiblin, and the steadfastness of a Genevieve Franz. I think about Dave Humphreys at 82 still volunteering with the youth, and Michelle Rafus. I think about the amazing gifts and skills of artistry and craftsmanship of Len Clark. I think about the search committee and Jim Holman and Susan Keyes and Virginia Hopley and others on there. Linda Schranz, who starts up a book club. Every different person, every different age, whether you're a nurse or a truck driver or a teacher, or you're Peg Gutsky working with the little ones in song, helping them discover their voice. Whatever the gift is, only you possess. You're one of those pieces of the puzzle. But without you, the picture is not complete. Period. And so I want us to be thinking about how is it that we create part of the picture that it makes us the church we are. Because the church, again, it's its people. It's its people. It's not its pastor. It's not its building. It's those are pieces, but they're not the whole thing. It's difficult with a little bit of wind to hold your nose together and to do this. Paul goes on to say one other thing. He says, don't conform to the pressures of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind. And in other words, I think of that as kind of swimming against the stream, right? Culturally, in the world, it might tell you these things make a successful life. And God says, no, it's really a different set of rules for the kingdom of God. It really looks differently in how you're a peacemaker, how you're blessing to others. You know, because I find that it's really easy to get into the mindset of a day, not even intentionally, but so much of the day is thought about of what we want, what we're desiring. So the very notion that our thinking is about outwardly, how can I make a difference to somebody else, is kind of countercultural to the maybe more egocentric narcissistic, advertisements. You need this product to smell better. You need this product to look better. You've got to have this to impress other folks and to fit in. Because going to any junior high school kid, conforming and fitting in, gosh, it's tough to survive junior high or high school if you don't fit in at some level. I remember when I was in 6th grade, up until that time in grade school, I always wore corduroy pants. Always. I go into 6th grade, I'm in my homeroom, and this kid, I know his name, did I forget his name? No, I know exactly what his name is. Started, just ragging on my brown corduroy pants, making fun of me, he basically humiliated me in front of my classmates. And I remember going home on the bus after what was just like a horrible day, and I said to my mom, I begged and pleaded, can I please get a pair of jeans because I can't go back there. Wear them. And I never wore them again because I was ashamed, because I wanted to fit in. So the pressure to do what everybody else is doing, as kids, as teenagers, as adults, keeping up with the Joneses, having everything my neighbor has. My neighbor got a new car. Well, trying to keep up with them in terms of spending or money or where we live. And again, Paul says, hey, it's a different game. It's a different set of rules. Be transformed by who the Holy Spirit is, so that our lives are really a reflection and glorification of who God is. So at the end of the day, whether you're Johnny or Arm & Hammer or who you are, your life is measured not by the things you have, by the substance of who you've been in relationship to one another. So as we celebrate here in this beautiful space about being church, being community, I want you to think about, what is my gift that God has given me? And again, I hope Johnny the Bagger inspires us that it doesn't have to be some burning bush thing. You don't have to get up and speak in front of church, although some of you do. You don't have to lead a choir, though some of you do. Some of you, that's your gift. It could be a simple gift that's just an offering of your time, of your encouragement, of your presence, writing a card to church members who've been sick. It could be as simple as that. But each part vital, each part making us who we are. What's your gift? Because you've got a gift. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Amen.